Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loki here. Join me today as we harvest my vegetable garden and I share what worked and what didn't work for this growing season. So let's go. We're currently in my backyard where I have a number of raised beds. And in fact, I showed you in the early spring months my process for putting these beds in. We used to have a wooden raised bed that we took out because it was falling apart. And then we put in these new raised beds. 4 of them are Vigo raised beds and 2 of them are Birdie's raised beds. I want to bring you in for a closer look around the vegetable garden to show you what's growing, and then let's get harvesting. In this first raised bed, you can see I have a number of cucumbers. This trellis system definitely worked well for us. It's a nice vertical trellis, and I would repeat it again for next year, absolutely. I was able to come in and harvest cucumbers pretty much every 2 to 3 days. We've had an overabundance of cucumbers. It's been wonderful. In terms of fertilizing, I've been fertilizing with liquid fish emulsion every 2 weeks. Although it has been a few weeks and these are definitely due for fertilizing. You'll notice that I have some drip irrigation. We put that in this spring and it's been a lifesaver. We had a very dry, a very hot summer for New Hampshire. It was extremely hot. So having the drip irrigation run every night was a lifesaver, and it really was great for the vegetables. On this side here, we planted a bunch of different types of tomatoes. And we tried doing the single stem trellising. I have to tell you, it worked out really well, and we'll definitely do that again. It just allowed for more light to come in to ripen the tomatoes nice and fast. And at the base of the tomato plants, we just have a bunch of alyssum or lobularia. And that has been great for bringing in the pollinators. I'll definitely be repeating that again. The only thing I would change is I would like to add more different flowers in here, namely marigolds, just to help bring in some of the beneficial insects. I was doing a really good job when it came to pruning the bottom leaves. I haven't done it in a while, and even though I was able to keep the blight at bay, it has finally struck my tomatoes. But I want you to notice, it doesn't affect it. I still have a number of tomatoes to harvest. In fact, I have a number of tomatoes to still eat indoors. So that is not a problem at all. The other thing that I want to mention is we use these little white clips, and we were clipping them to the string that's in here, right here. And that worked out really well. I will most likely be repeating that next year. Normally we have an issue with the tomato hornworms. I haven't noticed any this year. I'm not sure if the alyssum helped with maybe deterring them or if it brought in insects that helped. I don't really know, but I can share that so far I have not seen any tomato hornworms, and that's always been an issue for us. But as we start harvesting, if I notice any, I'll let you know. And here's the main control panel for our drip irrigation. You can usually buy something like this at a big box store. It worked out really well for this space. In this raised bed, we have a number of crops in here. In fact, this is a succession planting. This is our second grouping of crops. We have a number of peas towards the back, and fingers crossed, we see some peas before our first frost, which should happen sometime within a month to a month and a half. Towards the front are a number of bush green beans. We had so many green beans. I probably had 3 large gallon bags full, if not more. And that's just in 2 small raised beds, which is wonderful. And then in the center here are a number of radish. For the green beans, peas, and radish, they were planted about 1 month ago. So the radish should be ready for harvesting, and I will check on them. And because I sowed them pretty heavily, I will probably pull out every other one or so. And then in the second raised bed on this side, we have some more bush green beans towards the front. We also have more of the peas towards the back. We have some cilantro because I'm planning to make some salsa. And then we have a bunch of different varieties of lettuce, and that will come in so handy between all the tomatoes and all the cucumbers that we have. While I'm harvesting, I figured I can share other things in terms of what worked, what didn't work, and what I plan to change for next year. Right behind me, a number of large trees were removed. this area used to be fairly shady actually. So I wasn't as motivated about having a vegetable garden because I didn't have an area that got full sun. And most vegetables that you grow, not all, but most, need full sun. Well, after we had those trees removed, that brought in the full sun that we were desperately in search of. And with that full sun became beautiful vegetables and vegetable plants. We went pretty heavy in terms of sowing our cucumber seeds as well as sowing our tomatoes. One thing that we are thinking of changing for next year is we probably don't need as many cucumber plants. So we most likely will just use one of the 2 raised beds just solely for cucumbers, and that will open up another raised bed to put other vegetables. I love hot peppers, jalapenos, habaneros, and even though I started a bunch from seed, sadly enough, I didn't get any of them in the ground. And this time of year, I would love to be having little miniature non-pizzas with habanero or jalapenos as well as onions on them. So next year, in the other raised bed where we're not going to plant cucumbers, where we're going to have opportunity, I would love to put other plants such as some of my pepper plants and also some of my zucchini plants. We didn't plant any zucchini, and I love fresh zucchini, fresh squash on the grill. So I would love to be able to use that space for some of those plants. In previous years, when it came to cucumbers, many times the cucumbers would start to taste bitter. I have to tell you, this year, the cucumbers did not taste bitter. Perhaps it was because we were diligent about getting the cucumbers cut off the vine before they got too big. Or it could be that they got a good amount of moisture and they really appreciated that. I'm not quite sure, but whatever it was, we really, for that reason, enjoyed the cucumbers. And even though we were diligent about harvesting our cucumbers, some time has passed. Some of these cucumbers are larger than we were hoping when it comes to a size, a good size for harvesting the cucumbers. So fingers crossed going forward, these cucumbers will still taste good. Because rumor has it, if you even let one cucumber stay on a vine for too long, sometimes it can impact the taste of any cucumbers that appear afterwards. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I'll let you know in a future video because I do have a few cucumbers that are a little too big now. There's all these equations that you should run when you do a vegetable garden about how many plants you should have based on the number of people in your household that are going to eat this food. Well, in my household, it's pretty much just 2 people. It's pretty much just my husband and I. We have 2 children, but they're both in college, which is another reason why we've decided next year we won't grow as many cucumbers. In the end, after I'm done harvesting, I'll show you how many we end up with. It's quite a bit. Every year I say that I would love to learn how to preserve my own food. And even though I don't eat pickles, my husband loves pickles. But unfortunately, I don't think this is the year for me to try when it comes to learning how to make pickles. You'll have to let me know in the comments if you've ever made pickles, and if so, and when I say made pickles, canned pickles, I guess is the right word, how did you do it? What's your process? If you can leave the full process down in the description, I'd love to hear from you because I'm sure there's different ways to do it. So I should learn how to do it just so my husband can have fresh pickles. He likes to eat his cucumbers on a sandwich, and he puts a layer of mayonnaise and some cucumbers, tomatoes, and a little bit of salt. Me, well, my parents are from India, and I grew up eating a lot of Indian food. I love masala, and I like to sprinkle masala with nibu, or lemon juice. It's so tasty. No one else in my house would ever eat that, but that's okay. I get to eat it all for myself. I don't know the varieties of cucumbers that I grew, but I can tell you this one is a little too big. And even though this one is on a smaller side, they are just starting to get warped. They weren't for a long time, but they're just starting to now. That can happen for many different reasons. One thing that we were fairly diligent about doing, other than harvesting, fertilizing, was also training the vines because they wanted to do this. They just wanted to flop off the grass, onto the grass. So we would just pick them up, and we didn't use any sort of clips or anything, and we would just basically connect the vine onto the trellis, and then they would take off over time. So we will continue doing that next year. I know some people like to put clips when it comes to their cucumbers. Some people like to do a single stem, similar to what I've been doing with my tomatoes, so that the cucumber puts all its energy into one stem. I thought about doing that, but honestly, because it wasn't my first year growing vegetables, but it was definitely my first year growing this many cucumbers, I didn't want to deal with the whole single stem thing. And honestly, I don't know if I will do it next year. The way we did it for this year seemed to work. We have some heavy rain coming this afternoon. We're supposed to get well over 1 inch. I'm not sure about cucumbers, but when it comes to tomatoes, you want to harvest your tomatoes before you get a large amount of rain. If you don't do that, it can cause the tomatoes to swell and burst. So it's always a good idea to harvest your vegetables before a big rainstorm. Definitely your tomatoes. Sometimes the cucumbers are hiding and you have to go searching for them. Some of us are more flower gardeners, and some of us are more vegetable and not so much flower gardeners. And then some of us can actually really do well with both. Because I've never really had that much sun in my yard, I've never learned that much about vegetables. I have grown vegetables for many, many years, but there's so much to learn when it comes to growing vegetables, harvesting vegetables, canning vegetables. So next year, I would like to learn more when it comes to growing vegetables. But I will say, when it comes to vegetables, I only want to grow what I will eat or what my family members will eat. I don't want to waste my time with vegetables that no one will eat. Now, one vegetable I probably will not grow from seed again are onions. I tend to fall into that trap where I'm watching on YouTube everyone else starting their onions from seed, which is totally fine because they probably are going to eat all those onions. I'm the only one that eats onions in my family, and I really only want to eat them on my non-pizza, and that's it. So I really don't need that many onions, and when you buy a packet of onion seeds, you technically are supposed to sow all those seeds because onion seeds have a short shelf life, and they are less and less viable as the years go on. By the way, making this video really helps me a lot. I've been wanting to make it for some time now, and then I also really needed to come out here and harvest my cucumbers. But for different reasons, I wasn't able to get out here. So I thought, you know, I might as well make this video, share with you a bunch of things that are on my mind, and I can harvest at the same time and show you how much we're able to harvest. I love eating healthy, and I want to eat healthy. I'm not good about it, but I want to eat healthy. And when you grow your own vegetables, it forces you to eat healthier. Unless, of course, you fry it all, which that's fine too. But I am so happy eating just a large bowl of cucumbers for a snack. Whereas in the past, I would eat a whole bowl of some sort of a carb, like popcorn. But cucumbers with masala and lemon juice, so good. Our temperatures are definitely cooling down, and cucumbers like warmer temperature. Daytime temperatures are in the 70-degree Fahrenheit range. Nighttime temperatures are actually dipping down into the 40-degree range. So, and I say dipping down, like staying down in the 40s. It's getting a little too cold for cucumbers. Cucumbers definitely like it warmer than that. So that means I will start to see a slowdown when it comes to production of my cucumbers. And that's bound to happen, right? We've enjoyed them enough, and we're going to enjoy them for a while. When I store my cucumbers in the fridge, I put them in gallon Ziploc bags. I put a couple of paper towels in there, and then I seal it up. I put the date that I harvested my cucumbers, and that way I'm always picking the oldest cucumbers to eat first. The reason I put the paper towel in the bag is it pulls some of the moisture from the cucumbers and it keeps the cucumbers nice and crisp and fresh. I'm not sure where I learned that from or where I read it. I think I read that you can do that with lettuce too. So something to try if you've never tried that before when it comes to your cucumber plants. I'm not one to weigh my vegetables and tell you how many pounds is there. I can just tell you that this box is extremely heavy. It is multi-layer. There are a ton of cucumbers in there, so you just got to take my word for it. And I have plenty more where that came from inside in my fridge. When I harvest my tomatoes, the tricky part for me this year was I tried a whole bunch of different types of tomatoes. Thanks to you, you all gave me some advice on different tomatoes to try, and they all were very good. But when it comes to some of these different varieties, like the purple colored ones or the pink colored ones, my husband and I often questioned, is it ready to be picked or not? Because we're so used to a nice ripe red tomato. So I told him the best way that I can tell that it's pretty close to being picked is by just feeling it, by squishing it a tiny bit. And if it felt very, very hard, then I said it's not ready. But if I just, with my fingers, pressed it and it was just getting a little soft, then I knew that it's pretty close, it's time to harvest it. So I'm not sure if there's a better way to tell, because again, I'm not that familiar with some of these types of tomatoes. And I'll put links to any of these videos that I made having to do with the tomatoes that I tried, that I grew from seed, or anything like that that you might be interested in when it comes to my vegetable garden. I'll even put videos about the raised beds when those were put in. All my tomato varieties are labeled at the base of them, but I just wanted to show you. So like, look at the color there. It's a nice, beautiful pink color. And the top still looks a little green, but when I press it, it does feel a little soft. So I'm pulling it, especially again because we're getting that rain, and if it's not 100% ripe, it will be in a few days. My original plan for today was not only to harvest the vegetables, but also to do maintenance, to fertilize, to cut off any of the leaves that have blight. But in terms of fertilizing, it's kind of a waste to do because all this rain is coming in. It's supposed to be, like I said, about an inch of rain. I might as well wait until after the rain, and then I can come in and fertilize. For my tomatoes, I've been also fertilizing them every 2 weeks, and I use tomato tone. It's by Espoma, and it's a powdery form. And I would just sprinkle it at the base and then scratch it in and water it in really well. For harvesting today, I might harvest some tomatoes that I normally would have waited a few more days. I just don't want to chance it with the rain that's coming. In past years, I would always use a tomato cage, and I wouldn't be good about pruning off suckers. And yes, even though if you do that, you're still going to get a ton of tomatoes, what I found was with all that leaf canopy, it would shade the tomatoes, whereas when I'm pulling the leaves from the bottom or cutting the leaves off the bottom, I found that it just lets more sunlight in. I have to imagine that's good because the more sun the tomato gets, the quicker it will ripen for us. And it helps keep the possibility of the blight away from the leaves. So I will be doing that again next year. One tomato that my husband and I both are sad that we didn't grow this year is any kind of cherry tomato. I like to eat cherry tomatoes just to pop them in my mouth, or I like to eat them with mozzarella, balsamic glaze, vinegar glaze, and it tastes so good, and a little bit of basil. So next year, it's definitely on my list to grow some cherry tomatoes. I think I even have the seeds, I just didn't plant them. One thing I definitely will not be doing is growing as many tomato plants. I grew a ton. You know how it is, you buy a packet of seeds and it's so easy to just plant all the seeds. But then you end up with small tomato plants, which is not a problem, but there's a lot of up potting or potting up. And it's a constant thing, and I had hundreds and hundreds of tomato plants that I didn't need. And I've done it for years, giving plants away for free to friends, to family members, and that's all great, but let's face it, you only have so much time and so much space when it comes to our gardens. So I will grow tomatoes again from seed, but I will not grow nearly as many as I did last year. An herb that I've always grown and I didn't grow this year was basil. And this time of year, I would love to have fresh basil. So I'll definitely be growing basil next year. There are certain plants that are very easy to propagate from cuttings when it comes to flowers, to perennial or annual, but also certain vegetables or herbs. And one of them is basil. So easy to propagate it from cuttings. This is a tomato that you would look at and say, wait a minute, it's not ripe enough, it should be red. It's called pineapple. Look how huge that is. So delicious. Now I say so delicious, I have a confession to make. I love to garden, I love to be in my garden, I love to share anything I know about gardening. I used to love to cook before I had kids, and I loved to feed my kids when they were younger. But as they got older and we got busy with sports and activities, I shied away from making fancy meals, and it became more quicker meals because we were always on the run. And well, now it's just my husband and I, for the most part, except when the kids come home. And we tried some of these fancy tomatoes. I mean, they're heirloom, and I'll be honest with you, he and I, this sounds awful to say, but we couldn't tell the difference. We couldn't taste a tomato and go, oh my gosh, that was the best tomato ever. I don't know, maybe we just don't have good taste buds. I'm not really sure. It was actually disappointing. The first time he sliced into one of the heirloom tomatoes, I was watching him and I wanted this great reaction. And he was like, it tastes like a tomato. So, and I know some of you have told me some of the tomatoes that you've grown are like the most delicious. So let me know in the comments a tomato to try next year that hands down you know I will love, or my husband will love, because I want to try it. I know a number of you love sun gold, and I've never grown that, so that's on my list to try for next year. But let me know what else we're missing, because I know we're missing something. I should have mentioned it in the beginning of the video. I'm not even sure if you can hear it. It's the weekend and my husband's working outside on the lawn. He's dethatching it. He mowed it very low and now he's dethatching it. And he's doing segments of the lawn, sections at a time. And after he's done with that, he's going to overseed it, which will be perfect before we get this heavy rain. And I also wanted to mention it in case you look behind me and it looks like the lawn is dead, because normally our lawn looks pretty good. But unfortunately, if you want a nice looking lawn, sometimes you have to kind of sort of kill it a little to get it to come back nice for you again. It's so funny when it comes to tomatoes. Just learning about how to grow tomatoes successfully, I think, is an art. There's all this business about blight and why do tomatoes burst open, why do they crack, how to prevent that, tomato end rot. There's different varieties in terms of kinds, like there's the canning, the slicing, the cherry, I think, is probably its own category, the paste. I'm not even sure if I'm missing one. There's knowing about what flowers to plant around your tomatoes to deter bugs or to bring in bugs that are beneficial. My word, one tomato is like a meal in itself. I would love to be able to make my own sauce. It was on my checklist of things to do for this year, but it's not going to happen. Hopefully next year. I mentioned earlier how my husband likes to eat the tomatoes on his tomato cucumber sandwich. I like to eat them on a sandwich as well, but I like to eat them as a BLT. And I'm not picky about the bread they go on. It can be on whatever bread. And I love any tomato on my BLT. And sometimes I eat it as a BLT. Sometimes I might put a slice of deli turkey on it, but it tastes so good. And the other thing I've been doing, since I don't have any basil this year, I know I could buy basil, but it doesn't matter. I've just been slicing up a tomato and drizzling some of that balsamic glaze on it. And boy, does it taste so good. Some of these little ones are questionable. I'm just going to take them. I know the rain's coming, and with the little ones, I might as well take them, and they should ripen inside, no problem. You see me clipping. You could definitely just pull your tomatoes off, but honestly, I don't mind using hand pruners, especially with the cucumbers, because sometimes if you pull a tomato or a cucumber off, you can ruin your plant. So it's just as easy for me to clip them off. Well, we're almost done, which is great because the heavy rains are in the very near distance. I haven't even been keeping track of the different tomatoes to see which ones we like. I just pick them and we eat them. So quick recap. Cucumbers, I'll definitely grow them again, but only in one raised bed. I'll definitely use the trellis system again. It worked out beautifully. I'd love to try a different cucumber if you have a suggestion. Otherwise, I'm sure I have cucumber seeds left over and I don't like to waste things, so I'll probably use whatever seeds I have. For tomatoes, I'm actually thinking of just doing one raised bed. We might do two, but I think one raised bed might be fine. And I'd like to still try different tomato varieties. I'm sure I still have many seeds left that I'd like to use up. But I want to try Sun Gold, and if there's a tomato variety that a number of you are telling me to try, then that tells me I will try it. We'll continue growing the bush beans as well as the snap peas. We got them in a little late this year because we were busy with getting all those raised beds set up. Next year, we'll definitely get them in earlier. I definitely want my hot peppers. I need my hot peppers. I also want to grow some zucchini and squash because I love those on the grill when I'm eating a nice dinner. I can't forget about the basil. Basil is so tasty, and all you really need is one plant, and you can just keep propagating it to get more plants. I'll grow the cilantro again, and I'll wait just like I did this year. Past years, I used to grow the cilantro early in the season, but the only reason I was growing it, honestly, was to make salsa. So if you ran into that issue where you put your cilantro in very early, but then by the time your tomatoes were coming in and you didn't have any cilantro, remember to put in your cilantro seeds a little bit later. That's what I did, and that's why I have cilantro right now. The other thing I want to mention is on the other side of my house, I have raised beds that have strawberries, blueberries, and raspberry plants in them. I am planning on thinning them out because there's way too many strawberry plants in them. And I want to try to grow things like pumpkins or watermelon, like the smaller size watermelon, in those raised beds, because then they can sprawl on the rocks that are over there. So that's some of my goals for next year. Let me know some other lessons that you've learned in your vegetable garden. What will you be growing again, and what will you not be growing? I'd love to hear from you. And if there's something else that you think I should try, I want to know what that is. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.